Live on custom live, custom live streaming. So, oh, so we
Mhm.
can click on that. We'll see that, Bernie.
If you wanted to, it's gonna stream. It will stream to YouTube, but it'll get processed and saved. That's one of the biggest things there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just watch it the regular way.
Yeah, you can watch it regularly. The biggest thing is just taking advantage of their processing speed for stuff. So yeah, I'll give you guys a link for this as well. Yeah, I guess I'll just drop it here. So we have some sort of quickly processing thing. YouTube's just a little bit better at that. So, and I'm gonna record a clown as well just to make sure. And all right. So last time we were looking at our project yesterday, the last thing that we did was actually have an input that edited the state. It changed the state. So we had an input element here. And it said we have on click events, we have on change events. We said on change, you want you to run this on change function. Many times you want to be more specific with this. So, we might like have on change, um, so item, something a little bit more specific. But same concept here. When on change happens, the events fire, it's going to call this function for us and it's going to run it. We'll get the event just like an add event listener. And we're taking the event target value, right, to update the actual item on sell. So this was the last thing that we looked at here. And one of the hard things to kind of realize when we're looking at these events here is like this on change is like add event listener. It's linking this element up to add event listener, on change event, and then it is updating it. We're doing the updating with the event that comes in. So we still have the event like we always had. Like this was the hard part for most people with project one, with actually someone clicked something or typed in something, getting those changes and making a meaningful update from it. But event target is what we want to look at whenever we're saying, hey, someone click this, I needed more information, or someone type something in, I need more information. If we don't have this set state command here, the value will not update, right? You'll have an input and nothing will happen, right? If you get to that point, you're in a situation where it's not updating the state. I'm pressing these keys in, it's adding a letter to the end, and it's not updating the state though. Right? We're console logging what that event looks like. The moment we add set state, it's going to start firing off those updates to React. And it's very fast at doing that as well. And it's going to keep track of every single change we made there. So this is something as we do it more, it will become more familiar. But again, like before, we have our value. The way you set up inputs is you have to set the value up with one thing and change up with another with React. So you're no longer going to have just an input hanging out on a page with nothing attached to it. You're going to have to attach in the beginning. This is the value it's going to be. This is what happens when I change it. I think before, many times you're used to making an input, then making an event listener, then trying to figure something out, and then setting the value later, using the element itself, grabbing the element, updating it. When you use this with React, you got to do it all up front. You have to do it all at once, right? So it's either A, you could type in here and it doesn't update React. It's not connected to React at all. Like if we delete these two, or B, you have to have your on change and your value set up properly. so that you can update it and it's connected to React. If you guys remember as well, we had our toggle button. When we clicked it, we would flip our Boolean here from true and false. We spent some time looking at that. Again, another thing that becomes more familiar as we go through, use it more. Edit cell item is a Boolean. We make it start off as true. If we wanted to, I would probably do this. I'll set it off as false and make it so you can edit it. But that's just the initial state. Whatever you have up here is what people call your initial state. This is what the page looks like when you load it, right? Is there any questions about this component before we move on to the product part and start breaking this stuff down?
On change sets it where it will change. Okay.
Yes. hmm
Will it change when you press the button?
Press what button?
The edit cell item.
The edit cell item doesn't have on change. It has on click.
Okay.
So this is one set of like rules. On change is another set of rules with another element. So the button has an on click and
Mhm.
it does one thing. It does one thing. It has no idea about the input box. It's like, I don't care. You click me and I run this function and the function says, I don't know what's going on. All I do is toggle true and false. That's it. Right. What we're doing here inside of the button is we're reacting to the state changes, right? Whenever some state changes with edit cell item, we react to that. We can post something, we can hide something, we can change text, right? So this button has zero idea whatever else you're doing with this page. Again, you're kind of back in this space where you have to creatively solve the problem, and there is no like set way to do it. You could have tackled this a couple different ways. A lot of people had different ways where they actually changed even just the text here. Um, so there wouldn't be a set way to do it, but yeah, this button just has the toggling. This area just does the text, and this one not only has the toggling on and off for the edit so you can see it and hide it, but it also the element itself has on change and values attached to it. There's a lot of stuff going on here, a ton of stuff. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and move down to the next portion here. One other thing I did want to point out, we saw this before, just pointing it out one more time. Whenever you do an update, if the same key and value are there, you can just write that out once. A lot of people do this in React. They will make a variable that's the same name as the key and state, so they can just write it out really clean once like that when you're doing the update. I'll leave it like this, but just wanted you guys to know. So we have our on change event. I'm going to actually make this match exactly what's here. So when you guys look back at it, see what's going on there. Again, like we were kind of pointing out earlier, if you look closely, we can see very familiar code. To change our state in React, we use a plain old JavaScript event. This event contains our current value of our input form, and the event is fired by React every time input changes. Because we're using this new value to update the state every time the input changes, we should be able to see the displayed item update in real time as we type it, right? So again, like I was saying there, as we're typing, like on changing this, We could see it because it's updating the state in real time. So we have modified the state of a single component in two ways. One way with a button, because we did this here, the on click, we toggle that thing to true or false, and the other with an input part of a form. Okay. This is fairly simple when all our state is used in a single component, but what happens when we start to share or want to share data between multiple components? While there are many different strategies out there for sharing state, React emphasizes on unidirectional data flow. This unidirectional data flow means that data should only flow downwards to child components, never upwards. It also means that we should never end up with multiple copies of the same data. I've probably repeated this a ton of times when we were working on other things on the front end. Is like you should never have data twice. You shouldn't be some Boolean on the page, but then some piece of DOM you're using to store data as well. There should only be one state, and it should be a source of truth, and everything else basically gets that data passed to it. When you have multiple copies of things, the data could get out of sync. You can have one object that says one thing and your UI says something else, and some other child object is just completely off, like score. In the simplest terms, this means we should store our state as high up in the tree as components as possible. Whenever we talk about this, just remember this. It's not going to make all the sense of the world right now, but if all else fails, keep your state at the app level. It's not the best practice, but if you cannot figure out where to put your state to store your application's data, put it at app, right? You're supposed to store it at the highest up place that you can, but at app, you have it at the highest up place. So it might seem counterintuitive right now because you don't want to pass data around as much, but you can run into problems later where you need data and you don't have it high up enough. A lot of this doesn't make sense right now when what I'm saying, but as time goes on, when you run into those problems, naturally run into those problems, you'll see the pains that come from not having that high up enough. So we want to build an admin view and a store view that shows the same data in different ways. When the data is updated through the admin view, we should see data immediately updated in the store view. Assuming both of these views will be mounted on our homepage component, which component state should contain our product information? So talking about what we just talked about here, what's the highest up place or the place that's above where we need to share that state? So we want to build two views, admin and store, and they both should share the data.
I'll put it on the home.
Yep, we're going to put it on the homepage view. That's the highest up for us. Like I said, if all else fails, you can put in an app, but in this situation, it's pretty simple. There's two things that need the data. Homepage view would be the best place to place that. So again, here should you store it on a homepage view. Like I said, if all else fails, put it in app, right? And this is so that the data can trickle down to any components that might need it. So let's build an admin view that allows us to create some products for our hardware store. So we're going to make another component. It's going to be called admin view. So I am going to go in here, create it. I'm going to go ahead and make another React component. We're going to import React from React. Again, you could have copied and pasted this here, but I'm just going to write it out. Export default class admin view extends React component. Once we're inside of here, we're going to have a render. And inside of that render, that's where we're going to return our JSX. In this case, we have a div, an H1 and H2, another H2. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in here. Add a div, H1, I think that was H2H2. And inside of here, we've got, I'm just going to copy these words here. Admin view, trying to show you like thought process, go about start building out pages. Because again, in this project, you will not be given direction on what to put on these pages. That's going to be up to you on these components. No one's going to tell you what to make here. So we're going to have a list of products like we were showing here. So you're going to have a show of list of products here. Just leaving comments for ourselves later. And we're going to create a product form that goes, yeah. So these are the two things. I'm going to just do that just to be safe. These are the two areas where we're going to be placing stuff in the future. We're just leaving some comments for us to look at later. So it's going to be a list of products here, and there's going to be a form to create products there. Again, sanity check. One of the biggest things we try to do is just write something static. Don't do anything crazy. And we will import it into a child. So we're going to go in our home page now, just like we have here. We're going to import admin view in and print it out down here. So import admin view from admin view. And as you can see, we went ahead and added this here at the bottom after our little ternary statement that we have for our input. We just go ahead and paste that in. So I'm going to paste that in here. Let's see. There you go. Once we've done that, we should see our admin view here. Oh, let's see. I might have made a mistake. I think I didn't do a return. Yep. I didn't return my data. There we go. So inside there, we have this component being printed out. It says admin view, products, create new products. So there's going to be a form to create products, and there's going to be a listing of the products there. So we're going to have two different views that we can switch back and forth from, one for admin and one that's just going to have the products for like normal consumers. So we have our home page here. We have an admin view. Doesn't do anything. It's just basic HTML at this point. But it works, doesn't crash. Again, this is what you want to do to make sure you're not writing horrendous code. Most people with React is because they have an error and they continue writing errors rather than fixing it. So slow down, take a look what you're writing, try to fix it before you move forward. Let me actually do this yet. I'm going to create a live session here. And I'm going to drop this in the classroom. So we have our homepage. We're printing out this admin view. And now the next thing we want to do is show our products. So which component state should contain the list of products? We talked about this just a second ago, but asking in there. You guys remember?
Page.
The home page.
Yeah, the home page. Yep. So the home page, you can see it here because we have item currently on sale, edit sell item, and then we have product list. So this is our state, right, that we have. I am going to just copy product list. These are just some test products. If you're not creative, you should copy and paste it. If you are creative, you can make your own. So we've got a hammer, and we've got a nail, 12-cent nails, and a $12 hammer. So we're storing the data. Again, this would be something that you would have like in a database. You know, you would store the product name, description, price. A lot of this information, if it's permanent, have some sort of permanence, is probably stored in the database. So, excuse me. Let's go ahead from here. I went ahead and copied and pasted that there. Oops, why did it jump? Oh, here we go. This is the data for our products, right? This is just an array. It's an array of fake data. Like I said, if you wanted to create your own or create like different ones with different names or make some other ones that are power drills or whatever, you could. So because we have the data here at homepage and we want to pass that data to admin view, right? We're going to have to use props if we want to pass that data down, correct? That's what we've been doing. Let's pass data down. We've used props. So with product list, this is an array of items. With product lists, this is one of these things we want to share with admin view and the product view. So what we're going to do is pass down our products as a prop. Our product list, I think that I want to make sure we stay one-to-one. So product list equals, what are we going to type inside of here to pass that data down?
This props.
Nope, props is how you access it. How do you get the information in this component?
The
Props
state
is, yep,
product.
different state, yep. So props is when you can access data passed to you. State is when you access your own data. So when we're inside admin view to access this data, we're going to do this dot props dot product list. So that's what we will do inside of it. So this is how we're passing that down. We're sending it down via props, and we can access that now inside the admin view if we wanted to. We can actually see it here. If we wanted to test, we can do console.log this dot props. Just print the whole props object out. And if I do that, you can see my props object has product lists inside of it. See? This is me console logging inside of the admin view. If I go to React debug tools as well, I can see top layer admin under that homepage, under that, I'm sorry, app homepage admin. In admin, you can see the props product list now. You can see the data inside of it passed down. There's multiple ways you could take a look at this. This helps you so you don't have to do tons of console logs, but you can console log it out as well.
So the props allowed us to pass down the product list from the home page into the admin view?
Yep. That's how we pass data down with props. Like when we're doing before, when we had the user, we passed the user down in props. We had the blog post. Remember, we had that array of blog posts, and we passed the, comments. And we had the comments inside of our post. Remember, we had like a post where someone could write an article, and then it had comments. And remember when we had those comments that were passed down into it? What did we do with them after we got to them inside the child component?
Map through them.
We mapped through them because you guys remember you're trying to log it out before, and it wouldn't work, or it would be all on one line. One of the two would happen, and we had to map through it so that we could print out the list there, right? So if we actually wanted to print out, we have to know this. We have to match up with this product list that we passed down. We have to match that up here so we can list that out. If we wanted to list it out, we would do this dot props dot product list dot map. It's getting pretty long here. And if you guys remember, this is where we would actually put our code for each individual product. Just how we were doing with the data, the static data that we had inside of our pizza shop. That's how we map through our pizza items. That's how we map through our locations. We had data, we pass it down, we loop through it. If we wanted to at this point, I'm going to just make a simple item here. I'm going to return, and I'm just going to make a div just so we could test this to make sure it works. And I'm just going to print out the name. If I wanted to print out the name in these curly braces, what would I type in to get that?
This dot props.
Nope. So we're in map right now.
Just
So we're already
product.name.
Yeah, it's just product.name. So product.name, because what we're doing is just normal JavaScript at this point. This is the variable we want it. We're looping through it. And this is the individual item. Whatever we name that, that's what we're going to type in there. Right. So let's see here. Am I actually... Oh, it's called product name. Sorry about that. So instead of name, it's product name. And we get these items here. So that's just kind of like we were doing before with our loop, right? We were looping through before with the comments from data passed down to us. Whenever we want to make a list of items, we're going to use map inside of React to make that.
And you said we pass down with props from parent to child, not from child to parent.
Yeah, you can't, you don't even have an option to pass from child to parent. So
And then with state, you can just pass data from, it doesn't matter, like with state.
No, it's just, you only can go top down though. You can pass it multiple times as well. So we'll probably look at that in a little bit, but you can pass it down. You can pass it to a component, and a component can pass it to this children, and the component can pass it to that children. And it can just keep getting inherited from one to the other. You can just keep sending that down.
In order to do that, I just want to see if I understand this. In order to do that, you have to populate an instance of the child inside of the parent, and then inside of those tags, those caret tags, you put a variable matching preferably what you're passing down and define it as equal to this dot whatever, and then that matches the value of the variable that's just been inserted inside the child with whatever's on the parent page, and then when you go into the child component, you use props to call it. Right?
Yeah, so you can, this is the thing about it. Whenever you set up props as you're going through each one, you can name that attribute whatever you want. As long as you stay consistent, it will work. So you can name that attribute. You could change the name of that prop. I highly recommend against doing that, but you can change the name of the prop as it's moving through one component to another.
Because it's just a variable, right?
It's just a variable.
And you're defining it inside the parent page. But you can rename it there, right? As long as its value is equal, its value that you're giving it matches the parent one, right?
Yeah, as long as it matches the parent. Whatever you write in the parent, that's what matters when you're passing it down. So if I name this instead of product list, I name it PR. When I go to admin, this is now PR I have to use. It has to match. It's all about that consistency. So now see it's still working. Let's change it to PR. I could change it to Dave.
In the parent page, though, the value of it, what it equals, has to match the parent's information as well, right?
The value is just a variable. So
yeah.
It's just a variable, right?
Right.
So in this case,
but that variable has to match what you're passing down. You can't just say this has to.
So the parent is the source of truth. Everyone else is basically inheriting from that. So the children just need to match whatever the parent, like you can't, if you had like a null, for example, here, and then you try to map it, you're going to get an error, right? Because you
Right.
can't run map on null. It'll give you an error. People, that's one of the most common errors is this: cannot read property map of null or undefined, right? Is people trying to use a name that doesn't exist. They're not, stuff's not matching up. That's the most common error in React for most people.
Even if their link is correct, if the value of that link is null,
Yeah, or people just normally if people tell me that they have this error and they're just like, oh, everything is correct, right? They'll do something like this: product list. They'll do this because they're in this file doing that, they're in another file doing that. They save it and they get an error of this not matching, right? They name the attribute product list. They try to map through something called products. This is the most common thing to happen. It happens so much. Most people are going to walk up to me and say, say, hey, I have an error. And I'm going to say, what's wrong? And it's going to say, cannot read property map of undefined. And it's going to make you misspell something. It's
that's
just
case sensitive too, right?
Yeah, it has to be exact. It's because again, at the end of the day, you're referring to a object, a JavaScript object, right? You're referring to a variable. You're not referring to a it's not like a service. It just turns into a variable. It's just like request params, right? It's the same exact way. If you tell it that there's an ID coming in, it's gonna expect request.params.id. It's not going to expect something with different casing or something extra on the end. So again, it's like that same type of mindset you have to have where it has to be exact. Everything has to match up. That's going to be like a reoccurring theme of just having that consistency.
Yeah, my biggest issue personally is I forget to capitalize, for example, the L, like final case. They'll have progress spelled correctly, but that L isn't capitalized because it isn't, and then really wrong.
As you see me, I don't even type copy and paste. I tell people to get really intimate with their Command C, Command V buttons. It's just, yeah, much easier in my opinion, but because this is what happens, because this is the hard part for me. This is why I use TypeScript rather than just normal JavaScript. Is when you go into this component, you have no idea what is passed to it, right? The only reason you know is because it's written down right here. So you have to make sure this matches exactly. Whereas in a TypeScript TSX, it takes more work to write your component. I wouldn't recommend it right now because, you guys are just starting off. But the pros of it is that, I guess I can show. The pros of it is that the props are defined. So when I'm inside of it, it's going to give me auto completion for things. When I'm inside, this is a functional component, but if I wanted to do listings, this is a dictionary. I can say loading, which is one of the props, equals, I'll say Brandon or something like that. It's going to give me an error because it's going to say, hey, you can't put a string in a Boolean. You already defined this as a Boolean. You can't do that. So in my component, I'm going to get feedback. This is a functional component, so it's a little bit different, but I'm going to get feedback. If I try to have listings and I do listings.map, it's going to give me, it's like, I can't do that because listings is a dictionary. It's an object. So it can't do that. I have to do this, but it's an object, so it can't do it. So I get errors. You can see in my files on the side, I can see errors. If there's any errors in these files, there's going to be red on the file name for every single component. Whereas with one of these, I can type in this dot props dot, you know, I don't know, Tesla name or something, and it's gonna let me do it. It doesn't know. It will error out on React side, right? But I gotta wait till I go to the browser to see if it's correct or not. So whenever I'm linking things up, my component, I put my attribute and the information is being passed. I copy this. All right, this dot props, and I paste it. I don't even take the risk. You're not going to get auto completion when you're in that child component. You have to make sure you write that perfectly yourself.
So you can only map arrays, right, on objects?
Yeah, you only can map array, not an object. Object dot values will give you an array of the values in an object, but yeah, you can't use map on an object.
Right. So you could have an array embedded as a value of an object, but then you have to use dot notation to get to that array before you can map. Right?
Yeah. But yeah, with an object, it's like you can't really loop through it unless you use that object values or object keys to
in theory,
extract them.
Technically it's only one key, one value. So why would you loop through one? Right?
But most of the time, I stored it as an object in that situation because I need it fast retrieval when you use a map. But most of the time, you probably don't need to do that for most of your stuff. That was a speed thing. I sacrificed readability for speed. Object is it's not as easy to think about when storing data.
Brandon,
Mhm.
with the home page being the parent
Mhm.
and the admin view being the child, that's why you put the props in the admin view, because you're trying to bring that information from the home page to the admin view.
Yes, props is how you access data passed down to you. So if a parent gave you something, that's when you use props to access it. So props is how you access data given to you by someone else. State is your own data, right? So state is yourself. Props is what you inherited from your parents. State is what you set up for yourself. Props you cannot change, right? State you can. So if you like, for me, my parents made me short. That's the attributes they gave me. Can't do nothing about it. But I can be really bad at jokes or have really good dad jokes or something. That's my state. I can control that, right? But attributes you can't change. Just like attributes given to you from a parent, like in real life, you can't really do much about it. So
can you only change state if it's within your component?
yes,
like because you can inherit state, right, from a parent.
It's the way you do it. You're not inheriting state. See, so you got a prop. We're looking at its state. It's an attribute given to you, right? But you can't really. There's a way to get around this, but the way that works is your parent has a function to update itself, and you call it, and in turn, it modifies you.
So that's actually not a state. It's a prop that got exported from the value of a state. And basically you can't change it, but you can trigger a function telling your parent to change their state, and then the resulting prop gets adjusted.
Exactly. And then you'll get re-rendered. You'll get destroyed. In reality, it will get destroyed and a new admin view will get drawn.
And that's how you do the trick of using children to trigger modifications in the parent. You're not actually sending it up.
You're asking your parent, like, can you please like make another one of me, like without being short? And it's like, sure, it will destroy. Because what actually is happening, it re-renders. And when it re-renders, it deletes all this and redraws it again, right? And it's just going to draw out with the new information that it has.
So functionally, well, technically it's only one way, parent to child, but you can functionally trick it into working both ways.
Yep.
By using.
This is the thing about it. I can pass down not only state, but I also can pass down functions. So, right, for example, right here, edit or toggle edit cell item, I can pass that down here if I wanted to.
But then if you trigger that, wouldn't that technically have to send it back up? The
It's
information?
going to call a function. So it's a pointer to this function.
So it's
just gonna
global in
call
that sense?
It's not global. I can't access it unless it was specifically passed to me with a specific name. I'm
But
just
the
sending it.
request is global.
It's global means everyone can access it. It's not really. It's scoped. So nobody else can access it but the person I gave it to, which is this. Admin view now has one specific more prop that is a function. So props aren't restricted to just data. They can be functions as well.
So if you have that function now as a prop, you can trigger the prop and the prop will update the parent.
The prop will tell the parent, hey, call it. I just call that function you have. And it says, oh, okay. And it will call it. So I can have a button.
So in that sense, it is sending information back to the parent.
It's not, you're yelling at your mom and you're telling them to destroy me and make another one of me without me being short. And it says, okay. So it's not, you at the moment you call that function, you will get destroyed.
That's not a good parent.
It's not, it's not, but the child gets destroyed. Like it gets, that's one of the things is it's no longer there after that gets run. Like it's immutable. You're immutable. You can't be changed. So all they can do is destroy you and try again, make another one with different data. But I can say this props what was the name of that thing? Toggle edit cell button. I can do the same thing here now. I can pass that function down and it toggles that same variable. There's one source of truth we both are using, the child and the parent. From the user's eyes, right? It's just some cool functionality for you. You know, there's just one Boolean that's getting flipped. This is our way of getting around being able to edit things, but we just can't go in and say, hey, parent state, like edit self item, like change the set. We can't do set state on it, right? We have to do a weird thing. Again, this is bind it to this class. Remember, if we ran this some other way, it would have been bind it to the other class. So we've got our arrow function, which makes it bind it to home page, right? And we pass that down. We're going to have other opportunities to do that. I just wanted to, that was one of the things, is how we get around being able to edit state above us. We're not really editing our state above us. We're asking the parent to run a function, to run some functionality. So, and we're going to use this here because we want our admin view to be able to create new products, right? So we're going to have some functionality there with that. I'm going to try to stick close to this though, so that you guys can come back here and see a one-to-one. So, now we have some initial data in our product list pass and our admin view. It's time to display our products. So this is one of these things you can make a judgment call. A lot of people will create a product component, right? So there's a couple things going on here. One thing, let's go back to our where is that admin view? One thing, many people, I showed you guys, there's many ways to handle props. Some people do this. They will extract product list from props this way. They do that, and then they use that variable, right? That works. Same way. Oops, hold on. This dot props, sorry. That works same way. Right. Some people like doing const product list equals this dot props dot product list, or products, right? Whatever. They just want to make a simple name that they can use.
So you're saying, so in this instance, you don't even need to?
It's
No,
just
you would still have to define in the homepage though, product
Yeah.
list equals this dot product.
Exactly. This is just
Okay.
people taking that long variable, so they don't have to keep writing this dot props dot product list. They're just taking the variable and storing
Oh, I
stuff.
see.
That's it. It's not like
Yeah, they're
not
creating
making
a variable just to compress the dot notation down into one word.
exactly. That's it.
Okay.
It's not anything special happening. You're just making a variable to hold the data. This is different ways people are gonna take care of that. So that's what we're seeing here, right? It's just saying, hey, there's a new variable and it equals that variable. It's just a shorter name. Again, some people will extract it out. If you want to rename it, they will do this, right? I wrote it out here so that you guys knew where it was coming from, right? That was the biggest reason.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to be like, where is this coming from? It's like, this is a prop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But many people in the beginning of their render will extract the data so it's easier for them to manage from that point on. They'll rename it, give it some other name, pluck out what they want, just so you don't have to deal with this dot props over and over again if they keep using it.
Yeah, my 9 p.m. brain last night followed these steps and then got really confused when we started mapping things because I was like,
Yeah, this
what's
is where I
that
got
annotation?
lost doing the homework. Was trying to do
Yeah.
these variable the constants. And, yeah.
Yeah, that's all this is just a variable equaling this other variable. That's it. And it's just to shorten it. People they're like, I don't want to keep typing in this dot props dot product list. I do this even in my personal projects sometimes, because I will have so much logic going on. I don't feel, especially when I have a ton of nested stuff in my state. Sometimes I will have this dot props dot user dot state or dot location dot latitude, and it's like, oh my goodness, like I need latitude and longitude, and it just becomes super annoying. So I might have this dot props dot user dot location and inside of there I can take latitude and longitude out, right? I just don't want to keep having to write this dot props dot user dot location dot lat, this dot props dot user dot location dot long, or lng. So that just a way for us to quickly pluck something out. That's all that's happening here. Nothing else is happening here. It's just a variable storing the data from another variable.
You're just going to want to be able to find where that variable is defined. Like someone coming behind you wants to be able to see that so they can understand it.
Yeah.
Because you lose that variable set, then they're like, what am I referring to?
Yeah, they're looking up. And again, we want to keep our render small because of that as well. We don't want like a 400 line render. But yeah, because then you get lost. You're just like, well, wait a minute. I remade it up here, or I plucked that out there, right? You want to try to stay consistent, but do know that this is common practice. People will do this. This is a log just to make sure the data is coming through, right? So this is a component that just it holds the list of items and it prints out individual items here. I'm going to keep this as shallow as possible to get the job done, to try to make sure you guys have some clarity. And then I'll break this down a little bit more. You can see them here as well. They say, hey, we're making these variables like this, or we can extract it like this way. And again, they're doing that so they don't have to do this dot props dot product name, this dot props dot description, this dot props dot price, right?
Now this isn't a whole new file though, right?
This is a product. This is product list, and they go in admin view. So that's 3 layers now. You got admin view, product list, product.
Because that got me. I started putting this in product list and it wasn't working. And I realized, what? They didn't even tell me to make a new file.
So this is, I will do this in one file for now. Right here.
So you're putting everything in admin view.
Yep, right now. Just so that you can see what's happening. This is all that's happening.
Oh, okay.
That's it. So if so far as what's being accomplished, if we were to have just this all inside of our admin view, we've accomplished the same thing. So, and this is how I am as a person. Unless the component is so complicated, it needs to be another component. I do not over engineer early on. To me, this is over engineering early on. This is technically the thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to make an individual component for each item. You're supposed to make a component for the list, and then you have a component for the container that holds it all, right? This becomes really time consuming for what you're trying to accomplish. You saw how much code was written to accomplish this task. The task was loop through, right? Print the items. That was the task. But somehow it turned into all of this, right? All of this, right? Probably about 40 more lines. One thing I do want to call out here that you guys might have saw was this key, and we're putting an index in there, right? So if you look at this, it's to fix this error. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop, right? The reason we do this is if some item inside of the array changes, React needs to be able to figure out which item changed, find it, and update it or delete it, right? If you don't do that, React has to delete the entire list and redraw it every time the list is changed in data.
Is that to help with your delete command later? Your delete item?
Not for us. It has nothing to do with us. It's only React. It does nothing for us at all.
What I mean is, like, if you delete something, React has to adjust for that. Is that to help React adjust for our delete command?
Delete, updates, creates. So if you created something in between two items, it can look at those keys and say, that goes here. If you update it, it can quickly find it and update just that one item, right? And if you delete it, it can pluck out just that one item and move this stuff up. Whereas if you don't have keys, you create something, it deletes the list, it redraws the list. If you update something, it deletes the list and redraws the list. So it helps React manage, exactly like you're saying, it helps React manage the list, the rendering that happens. So normally what people will do is we'll make an index here. We'll grab that index because it's the I, the I inside of our loop, and we put it in there. This is the laziest way you could do this. Normally people try to be a little bit more creative because your key should be unique. It should be just like a ID in HTML. So normally people will have like product, list, item, right? Something unique specific to this thing. And then they will put the index at the end. Again, this is only optimization. It does not make your app like break or whatnot. It just gets rid of that message we had there. It helps React update faster.
So why did you put key in there again?
I'm going to delete it, start over and say it again. So React right now, if we go on our page, if you look here, there's an error that says each child list should have a unique key prop, right? So if you have a list of items, they should have a unique key. That's what React's complaining about. It wants you to put a unique ID there. The reason it wants that is so that if you change anything in the product list, it can quickly find that item and update it or delete it or add something in after it, right? So we can put in what normally people do. The laziest thing you could do is just put in the index. So this is the I. This is the equivalent of I when we're going through a normal for loop. You can name it whatever you want. But if you don't do any of this stuff, your app will work perfectly fine. No one's going to complain. Someone will look at your site, and if they see that, they will say, this is a junior React developer. I can tell he doesn't have keys. But your app will work perfectly fine. Right. The number one thing, if I look at an app like this from a person applying to a job, I open the console immediately and see how many errors and warnings they have. If I see a super clean log here, no warnings, no errors, I'm like, awesome. Like I immediately just say awesome, and then I just leave the browser and I go back to the the code and I try to see how they arrange stuff. But that already tells me that they have a really high attention to detail. Everything they build is pretty much perfect, and they try to figure out any problems they have themselves, right? They went through, they saw error, and they worked through them all, and warnings, and worked through them one by one. So this is a totally optional thing. It helps React out. React will complain about it if it doesn't have it. There's also, you can see here, there's certain, these two variables we created, we're not using them. So React complained, right? And it gave us those warnings there. But none of this is required. Your app will work without it. You don't have to put a key there. It's just to help React find items, delete them faster in a list.
And Brandon, once again, I want to make sure the props is just getting what we stated from the homepage, from the parent.
Yes. So props, if you have data and you pass it down to a child, that's what our props are. So if you pass data down to someone, the way the child accesses data passed to itself is props. So the parent can say, hey, here's a list of items. Here's your first name, right? We did that with movies. We did it with a couple of things. You can pass that information down, and the way we access it is this dot props. It has the match exactly. So for example, we pass product list to our child, and our child, to access that list, they had to type in this dot props dot product list.
That's just mapping through the going through each product and printing it out.
This is the list. Yep. We said, hey, we want to give this list to our child. So we sent it down. Now in our child, you have to know exactly what you sent to it, right? You sent an array, you can use map. We're mapping through it here, right? If we change that, it'll break it. We make this a Boolean that will break this component. You about to see something, Mike?
Yeah, I'm confused about the product dash list dash item.
Products
Is that like a
list item.
syntax to React?
Where?
So inside
what line?
key equals line 16 in admin view.
16. The key?
Yeah, is that how you have to write keys all the time?
You should be writing your keys like this. So keys should be unique. If you put the number 1 in one list and you put the number 1 in another list, React will give you another error, and it will say, you named 2 items on the same page, key 1. Basically, I cannot do what I was doing before, because now I do not know which item needs to be updated when it's updated.
Yeah,
so
I guess what I'm confused about is, why is it not just index?
Like what I just said, exactly what I just said. If you have 2 lists, what's the first item? What's the key of the first item in every list?
Oh, I see. So this is supposing that
we're going to have another list of products in the product view, right? Like there'll be another list somewhere else with, like, the moment you make a list of items, it will break. Like you would undo what you did. You might as well not do it at all if you have 2 items with the same key, because
the
React
key
will
has
just
to
stop.
be globally unique.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, not just unique in the output of this map.
Yep. Has to be globally unique. Yep.
So just below defined, that's why you have the product list item there in front of it.
Yep.
And
and
this
is
unique to this particular output.
Exactly. I just made that up. That's going to be hard for you. I know a lot of people, when they start, they have a very hard time just thinking up what to write. There is no rules on that. You're going to have to just pick something.
Would it be a bad idea just to do product list in camel case to match kind of what we're looping?
You can. It works perfectly fine. Normally attributes in CSS classes, things in HTML, they use kebab case. But that, yeah, you could do whatever, because it's going to get printed out.
Yes, because this is just like there'll be like a CSS class called out inside HTML. And it's just lowercase dash.
Yeah. I don't know if they're actually rendering this anymore. Let's see. Save.
But it's not a hard rule, right? It's just
no, not at all. You can
consistent.
You can do whatever you want. That's the hard part. Honestly, the hard part for most juniors is if the answer is whatever you want, then it's like, oh, like, so I can write anything. It's like, yep, you can write anything. I mean, if you go on sites like Airbnb, they know people can't think of these things up, so they put hashes here. So it just looks like this.
Yeah.
They're like, look, I know you're gonna sit here all day and try to figure out what to think up. So they actually just make a hash for every item and it'll look like that.
And you don't ever have to refer to that yourself, right? That's just something that React does.
That's just purely for React.
Yeah. So
yeah,
if you
so
were to
no
do
one
like
needs to get
camel
it.
face, someone might look at that and be like, "What's this?" And then
Yeah, is this a variable? And it's like, no, it's just some string. A string of what? It's like, I don't know. I just made it up.
So I could just do like product dash list dash ID dash and then index.
Yeah.
And that'd be like, hey, this is an ID or key, product list key, right?
Yep. You can literally write whatever. I've had people, again, I used to have a guy, I've watched a guy get angry and he was watching a junior. I was like, well, what do I put? He's like, I don't know, put Fort Taurus. He's like, well, that doesn't make sense. He's like, just put anything. He's like, do you want me to write anything? And he's like, no, not the word anything. Like, just write something. And then he just took his hand and like hit his keyboard like that. It was like, done. Make the pull request. And he's like, but I don't even know what that is. He's like, doesn't matter. He just slammed his keyboard. He hit his Apple keyboard and some characters came out. And he's like, all right, just do that. He's like, are you sure that's unique? He's like, if I do that twice on your code base and they're unique, then he's like, I need to go get some lottery tickets because like and they're not unique, then I need to get some lottery tickets because I'm on a roll. So yeah, if all else well, just slap your keyboard real quick and put something in front of the index. Because anything will work.
I have one more question. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. It's all about trying to.
So you're using the index to make it unique to that item. And you're doing that by doing the second comma, so your second argument is something you've named index. Is that always going to refer to the index in the map function, or how do you ensure that that's actually?
It's just like it's a function that you didn't define really. You just are defining what gets called. So it's just like the request response. You have no control over request and response. It will always be first parameter request, second parameter response, and then the third is next, which you guys never used.
Okay.
But so there's a third one here is the list if we wanted to.
So in a map function, second slot is always the index number, regardless of what you name it.
Yep.
So you do product I, you do product V, and then G, and G will be index.
Yep.
Because it's in the second slot.
Yep. A lot of people who actually, I mean, I'll keep autocomplete. A lot of people, it will do VIA. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Value index array. And you're like, but.
And so A is what?
The original array. So if you were doing something, in this case, we wouldn't do it, but if you wanted to modify the original array, you could go in and manually manipulate.
So that actually goes past the whole return idea and actually makes it like a for each effectively.
Yep. You can grab it and
so you can do both with map.
You could, yep.
So it's Facebooking them. It's saying, I do that too.
What'd you say?
It's Facebooking the for each loop, saying, "Oh yeah, I do that too." By the way,
yes, non-competition. I have that feature. You get do it all. I don't like trying to get throw too much at once, right? So I try to like show like this is the bare minimum, and then slowly kind of show you because all of those functions, a lot of them they have extra functionality like that. But it's like we use it when we need it.
But we understand the for each does that. That's its purpose. Let it do its thing.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas the map's like I can do everything. I can make a new one. I can modify the original. I can give you the index. And the reason we add that index on the end for the uniqueness because if we just put some characters here, when we loop through, all of them will have these same characters. The index at the end makes it unique, like the number 0, 1, 2, 3. You know, that's going to make it unique.
Everything that's an output of that loop. Right.
Yeah. So all of them will be JD 320 KD -0, and then same thing -1 -2 -3. But again, super optional. The big reason for doing this, and React will give you errors like you guys saw for this for not doing it. The biggest reason is just having clean code. Like you're just proving to an employer that you see problems, you fix them. You're not just letting them hang out and live forever. So no one wants someone on our team. They have to, spend 2 hours a day going behind every time they write something. In the beginning, when you first start, do know someone will have to go behind you every single time. But they want to know at least someone like tried, if that makes sense. So,
And they're making progress.
yeah. It's gonna happen. When we first start, someone's gonna have to go behind you. It's just the way it is. Whenever we hire a junior, our productivity drops for like 3 months. Like that's why companies are so like, oh, I don't want to get any entry level people. So it's annoying. HR will say like, can we just like not hire juniors? And we're like, you want to pay them 58K and then not be a junior? Yeah. I'm like, all right. So what are you going to do? They're like, I'm going to take these same things and I'm going to remove the word junior from the title. Problem solved, right, Brandon? I'm like, I don't think that's going to solve it, but okay. And they will hire someone and they'll go through all that stuff and they'll be like, the person's first day, they're like, look, guys, you guys hired me for like a normal developer position, but I want to say I'm pretty junior. And we're like, we know. And they're like, but the title of the job said, and we're like, we know. HR thought they were pulling a quick one on people. We know you're junior. There's no way in the world they're gonna go out in the world and hire someone for like 58 or 60K, and they're gonna not be a junior. Like, it's just not gonna happen.
The fact that you're here means you're a junior.
Yeah. And then it's so funny because they're like scared. They're like walking. They're like, guys, I'm an imposter. It's like, why? I have a confession. Like, I'm a junior. And it's like, we know. Your resume literally says you worked on this one thing. We know this.
These are my confessions.
Yeah.
If you really want to scare someone, you should take as a senior developer, you should take a senior position and go in pretending to have imposter syndrome and have a confession.
I had a friend I got into a senior position and she was I was like, you don't want to be a senior. So that's the thing about it. A lot of people at companies, there's Google, for example, there's L1, 2, 3, and it goes up to 10. And most employees of Google never go past L3. They're fine. They're like, I'm good. L1 is like entry level, intern, whatever. 2 is like associate basic developer. 3 is like you're a developer. 4 is like they start giving more responsibility. 5, you're a senior. No one wants to be a senior, right? No one wants to do that, right? People think they do, but then they don't want the responsibility of, this stuff broke, it's your fault. A junior can come to work, write code, or just a normal dev, SWE, software engineer. They can come to work, write code, send it to GitHub. It gets pull requests, like someone says approve, a senior approves it, and then they go home, right? If it's bad, it's the senior's fault. If it's good, it's no one's fault. It's the team's fault. If it crashes, it's the senior's fault, right? If it's engineered bad, it's the senior's fault, right? And the pay increase, you might get that regular engineering job, and once you get experience, you just say you're a regular engineer, you can make 90, 100K in Atlanta. The moment you go to senior, you get like another 10, 15K, which is taxed at a much higher rate. And you're responsible for anything breaking. If there's errors with these keys, they're going to say, why didn't you fix that, Brandon? Why did you deploy code that didn't have these keys in here? You should have known, So a lot of people just won't even, like, they get to that normal engineering job and they're just like, I'm fine. Like, there's not enough pay increase to justify the increase in responsibilities. But
It's the
yeah,
same way in construction.
really, it's like, I'm good. You don't want to move up.
All the field manager, like field team managers, are envious of that extra 20K that the field supervisor gets.
Yeah.
But then they don't realize why the guy's bald and falling apart.
Yeah, they do not. I have there's like a scar, like a stress scar on my head, like right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's probably like right there. I got that probably in like 2014 when I first got into startups. Like and I was just stressed. I was just stressed all the time. I finally just stopped caring, right? But it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna like spearhead this project and all this money's on the line and all that stuff. And it was hospital stuff. So I'm like, my heart's in it. And I'm like, I gotta make the best hospital software, right? But the rest of the devs were just like, we've been making hospital software for years. It's not a big deal. It's just software. And I was like, but people can die. And they're like, the nurses got it. They're fine. Like your software.
Yeah.
I know you're full of yourself, Brandon, but trust me, if your software doesn't work, the doctor is going to save their life, not you. Not you. As long as you don't give them the wrong medication or something, you're fine. Right. It's like that's why they went to school for. You're just don't think that highly of yourself, right? But yeah, it's like moving up into those spaces like most people don't do. I want to say like 80-90% of people don't hop into senior positions. It's just not worth it. So
And it gets taxed away anyway.
Yeah, it gets taxed. It's like, oh, you make 100K, and then it's like, all right, now you're gonna make 15 more K, and the company will cry and whine about giving you that 15K, and then when you get it, it's just gonna be taxed at some ridiculous rate and eaten up by whatever other
You end
stuff
up
you have.
making like 102.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I literally make
like you were making 100, but bringing home like
90
75
or 70 something. Yeah,
yeah,
and
70 some, and then you'll make 115 and bring home 78.
Yeah, and you'll be like, how did this
Yeah.
happen? And your boss is like, well, this is what I'm spending, so deal with it. Yeah, at that point you just start asking for equity or stock or something that's not tangible if you can.
Yeah.
One more
home company.
Yeah, basically. Keep the money in there so you're not double I'm sorry, I'm getting into tax stuff. I'm like, don't get double taxed. But here's another thing I wanted to point out here. Different pattern people will use instead of mapping out this in line. So instead of having the curly braces here, you see how in this case we have the curly braces and we put our map inside. Some people will say, hey, let me map through it, put it in a variable, and then in curly braces, print the variable out. So map through, return, right, our stuff, but print out. Again, it's more steps to the same thing. In this situation, we're making variables to hold the data for these elements. So we could have done that with this if we wanted to. I'm going to show you this really quick.
We have 2 returns on that?
No.
Oh, no. One is,
yeah, one's going into a variable.
Yeah, I see.
Product list JSX. So I can have this variable equal what comes out of the map, like when we're using it basic way, and we can print that variable out here, and we'll get the same thing, right? Again, it's us making variables the whole information and then printing it out. Sometimes this is easier for people to read. Again, find what suits you, find what makes sense to you. This might make more sense. This might be cleaner. Most people gravitate towards certain patterns, but know that there's multiple patterns people use for stuff like this. I try to get the job accomplished in the least amount of lines possible. So that's why I might have that. But many times people will see this and their eyes just kind of glaze over. Too much in one place.
No, I like it like that.
So they're taking the entire return div, the entire return loop, and putting it in a single variable?
Yep. They're taking it's basically an array of JSX, an array of elements. You know how we had an array of elements when we looped through it in the first, unit?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically an array of elements, and then you can put it in curly braces and React's like, oh, I'll just print this out. So that's what
Huh.
comes out of this anyway, as an array of elements, and then it's resolved in the curly braces. So,
And because you have your H3 and div tags, those get translated back out on your print.
because we have the what tags?
Like you're taking your map output, your returns,
Mhm.
and you're putting them in a single variable.
Mhm.
Does that create a new object, or
You actually make a variable. It's an array. So the map array goes in, array comes out.
so
So
in
you-
order to access inside that array the individual parts to print them out inside an element, you
Oh,
still
it's
have to use dot notation, right?
no. So it's an array. It's like it loops through. So Java, JSX or React knows how to print an array of elements. If you put it in
Oh,
curly
man.
braces, it's like, oh, I know what that is. That's what's coming out here, is an array of elements. And we remember back in normal HTML, we couldn't do that. Like we would have to go through an append to pin to pin child, right?
Yeah.
Here, React's like, array of elements. I will just print that out for you. I know what to do.
So in this one instance, you can make it a variable, and then if you reference that variable later on in your element, it'll print out the breakdown.
Yep. Yeah, React knows how to print out that array that comes out. So
I guess that's neat.
we could do it in line, or we could do it this way. But sometimes people like having those separate pieces there, like that.
Oh, I see. You named it up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes people, in certain situations, I've done this as well. They'll even make a function, a method to make the items. So they can do at this point. That's why I'm like, hey, just make another component. But they will say create product list, and inside of here we have access in all of our methods to props because it's part of the class. So in there they will do return that.
Because I was going to say, how do you choose what? Let's say you want to change it from an H3 to a P tag. You can't do that by just referencing a variable, right? You have to.
If you want to change a what to a P tag.
So where you had it before, they didn't have formatting, right? They just had like here, they just have the output as an array now, and then you do div and then print the array. So print it just as a div. That doesn't have, like, let's say you want your name to be an H3, description to be a P. You wouldn't be able to do that by just calling the variable, right? You would have to go in and format it inside your variable, the original constructor, if you will.
If you wanted to, you're talking about like editing data like this, like what's inside of the product. Because the thing that makes this a little bit more difficult is because there's another subcomponent called product, which is here. You would have to go in this file and modify it to make it update so that it prints out there.
I would think it'd be so much easier in your return, just create your H3 or P or whatever, and then use dot notation.
That's what we're doing.
Because otherwise, if you want to change anything about that variable, you have to go back to the source where it was created.
I know.
And input your styling there, as opposed to where you want it rendered.
It makes sense in certain situations when it's complicated, right? And this situation is not complicated. In my opinion, it's not complicated enough to warrant another component, right?
So you're saying, like, where they've layers and layers and layers and layers, you can compress stuff and it's worth it there.
Yeah, but if it's not worth it, then don't. You know what I mean? Then don't do it. And a lot of people, like for me, I try to keep, like, this one's complicated, right? This is an image container, and I needed to make a component for it because it's got lazy loading, it's got normal images, and it's got a slider. You know how you can swipe left and right with images in an array? Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. So of course I'm not going to do that in line, right?
And you're not likely to reformat how those are displayed. So it's fine to have them in a variable. Yeah. Okay. Because it's not really text.
It's not really text. This is just what we're working on is super basic text. It's not it's not doing any logic of figuring out, oh, is it this type of product? Is it a product that's on sale? Like if it was more logic in there, sure, right? But we're just printing out text here. We wrote
Yeah.
40 lines so that we can print out, you know, three lines of information. Like you wrote all of this and all of this, and you know, and then we want to render that out on the admin view page. It seems like a lot. I don't even say it seems like a lot. It is a lot. So, but let's move forward. I do want to get over to the creation. So we're listing out, the first thing we wanted to do on our admin view is list out end products. The next thing, the big thing here is creating something new. So again, remember our products are here. So when we create a new one, what do you think we're going to do to this list? Or what we want to do?
Do like set state?
We do want to do set state, but we want to just push like a new, right? A new
It's an
product in here.
array.
It's an array,
Mm.
right? But let's go ahead and get our basic stuff in here first. We have our admin view. The next thing that we want to work on with our admin view is our form for adding products. So now we're able to view our product list. Let's add some products, right? So as always, to update our existing information, we'll need a form. Let's add a new one, a new component called product form. I am going to make a new component for this because look at this. It's a lot of stuff happening, right? I don't want to shove all this in my admin view. I could shove it all in here and add in another, 40 lines or whatever, but I will make a form for this. So we're calling this product form. I'm going to go ahead and create a new. Was it the last part that we just did with the list? Was that one of the big parts that got people confused? Like that's kind of where you kind of came to a standstill before?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the delete for me that did it.
The delete on the list, like the array?
Yeah, making sure like it was linked somehow to where I could destroy it with an index if I remember or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. I used filter or whatever, and I basically I compared it would push everything to a new array that wasn't matching the actual object.
Mhm.
And then it would make the array that renders out equal the new array.
Could you do slice or anything like that?
I
Or you
suppose
need
I could.
the index?
Yeah, I probably could have. I just found something about filter on
Okay.
a page, and I pretty much used that and broke down how filter was working with it.
So let's look at this form here. What we want to do when we have a form on a page, we have to start making our state match whatever we have for our inputs. So we do this whenever we have data on the database. We do this whenever we have forms. Our state needs to match whatever our form is going to be, just like we did on the back end when we had our schema, right? Excuse me. So let's look at this. I am going to go ahead and start building out this behemoth. Deciding if I should. Now I'm going to copy it. It's a lot. It is quite a bit. And we're gonna talk about some of this stuff here as well. I'm gonna go ahead and set this state up, and I am going to export it and have it in our admin view. So I'm gonna import in our product form from product form.js. We're going to print this out here. It's nothing going on in there right now. It's just a big form of HTML or JSX.
You need to import product list also
From where?
from product list into admin view.
From where? We're at admin view right now. What do you
Import product list.
From where?
From product list.js.
Oh, I don't have one. Otherwise it would have been.
Right. Sorry, I'm getting our windows mixed up. My bad.
Yeah, I could create one, but this was so simple.
Yeah, you put it inside thing.
Yeah, it's 3 more layers, or 2 more layers doesn't make sense in this context, in my opinion. And I'll break this down, but I just wanted something you could see a little bit easier here. We should have our form here, even though we wrote all that stuff. We have this form right now. As you can see, we cannot update anything. Right, you guys remember why?
We need to set state.
We have the set state for this. These individual inputs don't have set state or on change handlers for them. So let me make a basic one here first. I'm going to say on change for product name. So I'm going to say on change or on product name change equals, I'm going to make an array, or not array, but an arrow function. And I'm going to put this on this first one. Again, when we needed to update the state, as you can see, we pointed this dot state dot new product dot product name because this is an object inside the state for this new product we're creating. So when we are in here now, if we want to do that update, if you remember, we had to get the event and the event target value. Remember that? So we're going to do this dot set state. And inside of set state, we need to update product name, right? If you look here, there's something really interesting going on here. What we had in our previous one. I'm going to show you why we're doing that. If we wanted to update product name inside of state, we can't go in here and type in this, right? We can't do new product, right? Can't do that. We could, and if we did this product name, for example, it's going to override our entire old object and it's going to delete description and price. It's basically going to take all of the previous information, override it with this one. It's going to say, oh, new product equals this now. Oh, okay. And it will just delete this whole object and replace it with this object. Because we're getting into what's called nested objects. This is where objects get complicated and you do not want to modify them directly. So the way you actually will handle this is by making a copy of the current state, modifying that, just so you basically treat it like a timeline in real life. You take the current state, you make one small modification, and then you put that in the timeline, right? That's how we go about modifying a more complex state. This is the way you should always, if you have the chance, modify a state. Copy the current state, modify or copy, set the new copy into state there. That's what we're going to do here. That's what we're doing here when you see in this line here, new product, right? When you see that, we're doing const new product equals, and it is curly braces. This is what's called a spread operator. This dot state, right? We can do new product. Many times people will just copy the entire state like this. But basically, the main thing you need to know is you need to copy what's there before, modify, and then set it.
You mind elaborating on that triple dot thing?
Copy. It's not really any elaboration. It's called
It
spread
means
operator.
copy.
It's got yep,
Yeah,
copy.
because they mentioned spread operators in the assignment, and I didn't understand what it meant.
Yeah, there's not really
So
a
all
lot.
it means is make a copy of this.
Yeah, I mean there's other things you can do with it in the future, but it's normally make a copy. Like this, for example, is three numbers. You can send those 3 numbers here, it makes a copy and sends it. There's a lot more you could do, but for example, if you have an array and you have a couple items you want to add to it, you can take a new array, square bracket, dot, 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 add more items to it. But you're still just making a copy and then adding items to it. But for the most part, your spread operators just for copying. For example, these lyrics, head and toes, right? You could take shoulders, knees, and it will make that copy there. So then your lyrics will now be head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So see, this is us just making a basic copy. You could use array slice to do that as well. But this is the modern way for us. If you take 2 arrays, you want to put them together, you can put both of them next to each other in there. But you can do the same
Wait,
with
but then that
objects.
redefines array 1 as the copy of
It does
array
not.
1. It doesn't?
It copies it. Or oh yeah,
In
this
that
one does.
sense,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. They're
So
redefining.
it is copying, being nice about it, but then you're redefining array 1 and stuff.
That's just bad. Like
bad
it should
code.
just make array.
It should
3.
be array 3, yeah.
Yeah. I think they were just showing that you could modify yourself with yourself. You could do the same thing with objects. You can copy an object. You could take 2 objects and put them together, right?
So how would that end up working if you made 2 objects?
How would it work with what?
They would need the same key name?
No, it takes what's inside of it and spreads it out. It opens it up and spreads it out. If that makes sense. That's why we have to put curly braces on the edges to hold the contents of what we spread out. If that makes sense.
So it takes the key value pairs and just put them with a comma between.
Yep. The big thing to notice here is that the whatever is at the end is what overrides what is in the beginning. So we have foo and foo, bar and baz. Baz is what wins here. In the context of React, you won't have to do this too much until you get to Redux, where you're taking 2 objects and forcing them on each other.
Because they have the same key name.
Yep.
There's a contradiction. So the second one in line repeats the first.
Yep. Whatever you add on to the end overwrites the one to the left of it.
So it cascades.
Yep. It will. You can set it, and this will override it, and the next one will override, next one will override. Whatever's at the end will win. So the order of that.
If the key is matching, and there's a contradiction.
Yeah. It just you put stuff there, and then the second one just
Yeah. So if they have different key names, it's just going to create different instances.
Yeah, it'll just keep getting bigger.
Okay.
So there's in the case of React, the spread syntax is really just used in React alone, not Redux. But in React alone, people use it just for copying.
It's interesting that it won't return an error for you saying, hey, you have 2 of the same key, you're merging. It's just going to do it for you. And then you're like, I didn't know that. Like if you didn't intend to do that, right?
People actually use object key value overrides to solve a lot of different problems. People, that's literally how they store your messages in Instagram and your profile pictures and all kinds of things. Because if you override it, they can just be like, he updated his profile picture and just
so they don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to
gotta find it.
Function. They just say his profile picture now is
you just set it and it will just
forget the old one.
Yep, it will just get deleted, and you don't have to go in a database going looking for stuff. They can just set it. If it's something there, it gets deleted. Yeah. Right. If it's nothing there, it gets
object
sent.
Is the only object. So that wouldn't be good for keeping records, but if there's something you don't care about keeping a record of.
Yeah, if it's not good for, normally people use objects to figure out things and store a single record, right?
Mhm.
A single record of information that two of them shouldn't exist, like that, right? For key value. So we use that for like profile pictures. We use it like there shouldn't be two people with, or there shouldn't be a person with two profile pictures, right? There's only one of it. There shouldn't be two product
Right.
names. There shouldn't be, right? So it's like if it's updated, just wipe it out. But there's some stuff you want to keep a history of. You would not use an object for that. So you needed a history of so this is the thing. Here's the thing. React keeps a history of every state update that ever occurs. So the way it does it is it has an array of every object set state that happened. So it keeps a record of all of those. So what
Where is this
happens?
kept? Just in React's database?
It's in React's database on the system. It's super small. It's not. I know in your brain it's like, oh, so much data. It's nothing. You could use this React application all day. You would not make enough data as an image. The image you put on some website.
Hey, Brandon,
Mhm.
question. So on
Mhm.
line, I'm trying to make sure I understand this. On line 29, it said this
29.
new product.
29.
So new product is in state and product name is an object in the new product, which is in state.
So new product is an object. Product name is a string inside of new product.
Okay.
But yeah, it's inside of the state and it's nested. So it's state, which has an object called new product, which has key value. Like, see, we can expand that out. Has string, 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 product name,
Product
description, and
name
price.
wouldn't be an object. New product is the object inside of state. Product
Yep.
name is just a string inside of the object inside of state.
Yep.
And you needed on line 15 and 16, you did a const.
Well,
So
we're talking about that now. It's these two things. You would do one or the other. You're not going to do both of these. I'm about to show you why you would do one or the other. We haven't used it yet at all.
and the three dots is just a copy, like you said.
Yep. 3 dots is copying. Like you could do it for a string, you could do it for arrays. It makes a new copy of stuff for you. So, and this works in Node. It works in all the new versions of JavaScript.
This is not just a React method.
Yeah, it's not just a React method. It's a ES7 thing. So this again, this is like new JavaScript. That fairly new. I want to say like 2017, 2018 started being, used. Most people, when it came to dealing with that, they would create a new object. So this is what people used to do. They would say, let new state. And I used to have to do this. And you would either make a new object like this, and you would say like product name. And I've done this in front of you guys before. And I was like, crap, I want to use spread operator, but I don't want to confuse you yet. This dot state dot product. Sorry, new product dot product name, description, price. And this is how they used to make a copy. This is what I have to do. I've done this on one of you guys' exercises to copy data before.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have a copy of the state or of new product. I'm sorry. It's just a new product, right? And if I wanted a copy of the state, then I would say like const new state, and I would take this new product and put it inside of it. And then I could modify and do what I wanted to do, right?
Right, because create a new variable to modify that.
Yep. So I wanted to say, hey, I want to make a new object with all that old data in it, and now I want to change it to my liking. So we would have had to do that and then go in and update, each one by one. In this case, we have product name. So I would use all my old ones, but this one I would say product name, event, target, value.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would set my state with this.
This is just another way to write it, Brandon.
this is the way you would have written it without a spread operator. This is the only other way to write it without spread operator.
I'm a little lost with line 17, event target value. Why?
How did you get the data of what you clicked when you were in project 1? What would you do if you clicked something and you needed to get the information of what you clicked? It was event target.
Oh, we just haven't used this in a while, huh?
You haven't done front end.
Oh, damn.
It was at, like, if you had click and you click something,
It was an event target.
event target. Yep. And value was input boxes. If you wanted to get something someone typed in, you had to get value out of it. But event target would get you the item that the event was being triggered on, like on click or on change or on scroll. Event target gave you that item. And since we're on product name, right, we're getting the value of this thing as we're typing it in. But we need to update the entire thing. We need to keep the old description, keep the old price, right? So we've got to get all that data, put it together, put that in the state, and then we can put that in there if we want. We can use new product as well. So you could do this different ways. You could have a object you send in like that, and that works. But normally people just go ahead and, like, we're at the point where I'll show you just making copy of the state's the easiest and modifying what you need. So my recommendation whenever you have these updates is just copy the state, the entire state, and modify what you need. So I would do const new state equals curly braces dot this dot state dot, or just this dot state. And that, like we talked about, is going to make a copy of the current state, right? If we wanted to update product name with this new state we have, what would we type in?
New state dot product.
That
Dot
what?
new product, right?
Yeah, new product
Equals event target value.
So that would update the entire object. It will wipe out the object and it would set it to a string.
Dot product name.
Yep, dot product name. And then we can say event target value. So we're copy this entire state, made a new copy, and we modify it. After we do that, we can set state there. So make copy, edit copy, update state. If we do that now, we should be able to change the product name, right? We can't do the others. Again, we haven't made events for those, but the first one we have made one for.
We haven't set up the event target listening yet, though, right?
Event target listener.
Like where we're pulling target value from.
Oh, so that's a trick I'm going to show you so you don't have to continue writing this for every single item. Because if we continue the same method, we would have to make a new
Name,
change
description,
element.
and price, right?
Yep. Right. And you would have to make one for every input, which you can do. If you're in a situation you're like, crap, I don't know what to do. You can make an event change for everyone. So we have product name, we could do description. We can go in here and do description. And then description will work. Or should. Let's see. Oh, we gotta add it in. We can do description. And then description should work, right? We get 2. Price is wrong, right? It doesn't work. So we can make another one for price, right? And that works. But one of the things that happened was people got annoyed of doing this, and some people found out a little trick they could do. They said, what if when we make our inputs, we make the name of the input the key in our object and use that name to access each key. And then we can have one function to edit all of our inputs.
Can you say that one more time?
What if we make the name of our input? See, this is just a attribute, just call name, right? What we use whatever. Attribute call name. We make it equal to the key of the object, like the value we're updating in our state. So we could use that here rather than having to rewrite another one for every single button or every single input. So they say, hey, let's use name to store and make that match our state. And we can use that instead. So
isn't that kind of like what we did in our handlebars for project 2?
In handlebars, we had to make name, and it had to match the object. And it just, the object actually, when it was submitted, it just worked. But yeah, we had to use name in handlebars to make sure that when we submitted it, it turned into nice
You're
JSON.
converting it into the JSON object. In this case, you're just converting it into the key name.
Yeah, just a key name.
It's kind of using the same trickery though, or similar, right?
Yep. Same sort of situation. Someone figured out, they're like, man, what if I just had one to take care of them all? So people start doing that. They start using the name attribute to store the key that's being updated here. So then they can have one function. I'm going to use whatever function they handle product change. So with that, once we've done it, we can go in and we can say attribute, or I'll say name attribute equals. Well, how do you think we would get name from these items on this event?
Event.target.name.
Yep, it's just going to be event target name, right? And with that
correlates to line 30, right? We're
30, 39, and 48.
All of those. Okay.
Yep, they all already have the name matching the key here. So instead, if we have a string, so now we have a string that's just product name, description, price, right? We can go in now and use that with square bracket notation. We can't use dot notation. We use square bracket notation and drop that in here. And now what happens is we have one function. Let me make sure this is saved and actually working. Credit. Update all these. So now we have one function that works for all. It takes the key, this attribute here, console log it out.
Oh, I see.
Takes this, and whenever we're typing now, oops, I didn't make the variable. I was trying console log before I made it. Okay. You can see product name, I'm updating it. Description is getting updated. Try to make this bigger. And price is getting updated.
I see. So you're using bracket notation to insert your variable value.
Yep.
That's how you make it kind of happen then.
Yep. And I'm able to use one function for all of them. Again, this is just a trick people found that they use to handle this. I've worked in classes at companies that had 14 different change methods, and I've worked with some with one. Because some of them are more complicated. Some of them will say on change, make sure this is a valid number or email address, right? They might have very specific things for each field. But if you're just doing a basic input, this works perfectly fine. So now we've got this change handler. This, what we have right now, is what most people use for all their forms and inputs. It's just easier to manage. They can write a couple lines, like, right, you can copy and paste this and make it work. The hardest part of making this work is making sure that this matches the name here and you have the value set up. If you do all of this correctly, so it's like a dance of states, handle change, this, they all work together. It's a little triangle. Set all that up, works perfectly fine. It's really good.
Okay, I think I'm still a little bit confused. So for starting on line 15, we're saying we have a variable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That variable is the name of whatever is here. So this is getting called when we change input here. So once we do that, we get an event for it. And that event target, right, with the thing that actually called it, has a new attribute now called name. If we make name match what's in our state, like link it up, we can easily go in and we can use that name to update product. We could say, hey, when we make our new state, go in and modify this particular item inside of new product. The other way to do this, like I said, is making a separate method for each one. You can make handle like name and handle price and handle description. And you can just manually, instead of looking at the name, you can manually type in each one here, like dot, product name, right? So it's just a different way of doing it. It's not required. It just makes it so that you can write one product change event rather than having multiple ones. The hardest part about this is there's multiple things going on. There's a state being copied. There's the name we're getting from this. You have to know that that's where a lot of this information is coming from, is right here. Excuse me. Matching up with the state here.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
It's not gonna stick all the way the first time. I'll put it like that. You're gonna have trouble with it because all of this stuff has to match up here. So I won't even lie that you're gonna you might understand it, but it's gonna take a minute before you can kind of solidify it. So let me go in my components tab here now. I'm gonna look at this form. You can see now, here's my state. You can see now, power drill. Look at the right. You can see it updating. Best power drill in the world. And then price is going to be $200 or $300. Yeah, we'll just make it 300, right? So now the next thing we're going to want to do is when we click create new product, what are we expecting to happen there?
It should populate on the browser under products.
Yep, it should go in this list. What is this list here? It's an admin view. It's this one, right? Which exists way up here and product list. That's where it lives. It lives in the state of, of the homepage inside a product list. That's where it lives. We want to update this list with this thing. But first things first, let's click it and see what actually happens. I'm going to click it. Page reloads. Do you guys know why that's happening?
Triggering a new render.
It's the browser's default to
it's the
reload.
It's the browser's default for a form.
Oh,
The form is trying to post to a place. It doesn't have a URL, so it does it to itself. But the form by default says, oh, yeah, sure, I'm going to submit. It's trying to post to some backend. It's old school. It's OG, element. So what we have to do to make sure that doesn't happen is we have to use something called prevent default. Some people might have used it. Maybe one or two people used it in project one. But this is our way to actually stop this page from reloading. So before we do any of the product stuff, I want to show you that first. So there's an event that the form has when we click this button. Does anyone have a guess of what that event's called? It's on. Yep, it's on. It's on submit. Yep, it's on submit. On submit is the function or the event that gets called when we click the submit button here. So I'm gonna make a method for it, or I'll say on add new item. I'm gonna refer to it here. Let's look at this thing. So if we have this set up here now, right? We type some stuff and we hit submit, everything goes away. If you ever see that in your projects, know that you have not stopped the form from the behavior it has normally. See, it's refreshing the whole page because it's trying to post. So if we ever want to stop a form from doing that, we have to get the event. We have to do something called prevent default. This is a method that stops things from doing its default behavior. You can do this on links. So if someone clicks a link, you can stop them from going. You can do this on a lot of stuff. Some people do this in a very annoying way. You'll be clicking a pop-up box and it's like, are you sure? It's like all these pop-ups happening over and over. They're preventing default behavior, making something else happen. Once we add in this one little line here, now look, we got iOS submitted. Prevent default happen, and it's not doing the post anymore.
So that prevented it from just refreshing over and over again?
Yep. It's preventing it from posting. It's trying to post to the backend. You remember how we had the form before with handlebars and we click submit and it would post by default?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's trying to do. So we have to stop it from doing that if we want to use a form. But let me show you something else though. A lot of people, they don't want to deal with this. So they just won't even use a form at all. And they'll just make a button, right? On this page. And they'll just have on click, right? Right? That works. The problem is that accessibility. Like if you don't have a form, you don't have accessibility, can't tab through. They can tab through, but it's not going to be as easy for them to know what to submit. This is just going to look like a link to them. And they won't know that this button belongs to this set of items, right?
So button doesn't interact with input the way that submit does.
What is it?
Or button doesn't interact with input the way that form submit did in terms of value being read out.
It's not contained in the same space. It just looks like a bunch of random elements on a page to it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like they don't know.
Whereas putting it all inside a form, now their tools know by default where it is.
With the form as well, if you're filling it out, if you press enter or they run a submit command, it will submit it, right? There's a ton of things you do in a form, whereas with this, you have to click a button. Like there's nothing else you can do.
Right.
I can't hit enter. I can't run a
You
screen
can't
reader
tap
submit
through.
span. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might be able to tap through because of the way I ordered it. But if you don't order, like if you got some Flexbox stuff going on, it might be all
Right.
over the place. If you got extra divs, so if you got one div here, you can't tap through
Mhm.
anymore. Like
If you make your inputs inside of divs, so you can space them around and div them up. The form doesn't bring that functionality.
So I'm going to convert it back to a form here, but I do want you to know if you want to, you can just put a button there. And that works perfectly fine. No one's gonna, you know, call you out for that for the most part, unless it's a larger company accessibility reasons. They're gonna want to try to stick with forms.
How would you ensure that the button interacts with the inputs the way you want?
It doesn't interact with it. It's just a random button and some random inputs. You literally could put these inputs in the top right hand corner and the button in the bottom right hand corner. They have no, like, you're basically saying when I click this, run this function. That's it. There's no relation.
And you'd have to have your inputs then hooked up to respond with that function being called.
Nope. It's all your data is in your state. So whatever you want to do, you just say this.
Okay.
Like there's no the actual fields on the page. It's like they're just there, and the button's just there. Again, for most users, just fine. The biggest thing is accessibility for them to go through, and they can say, I want to submit this form now. It's complete, and it will try to submit. Yeah. But it will work with just a button. React and a lot of these modern frameworks, that's why accessibility became an issue, is because previously people used basic forms like we did with handlebars and when we did it with Project One. React came out and people were like, man, forget that. Like, I'm just gonna put some inputs and a couple buttons. And they wanted all these crazy designs and UIs with all these things popping out and flying off of the side that have nothing to do with the form. And people who needed screen readers, all of a sudden the internet became dark for them. Like they couldn't read anything anymore. Like images didn't have alt tags. Items were just, they had garbage on them. Forms fields didn't have, they had these names, but the names didn't make sense because they were pointing to this, right? The button didn't, it's just hanging out on a page. So yeah, it became really hard for them. So all of a sudden the internet became really inaccessible to people with any type of disabilities or screen readers, right? And yeah, so nowadays people are trying to move more towards accessibility, but do know it's not required. A lot of the internet, even Facebook themselves, they're working on it. They don't have that accessibility, right?
Brandon,
They're working on it.
right there, like the
Which
inputs.
line?
No, I'm just saying the different inputs, the three different inputs, the price, description, and product name.
Uh-huh.
Those are represented on the browser by those three forms, right?
Yeah. Yep. These are input type text, input type text, input type text, just like Project 2.
And you couldn't do it in one input, right?
Type out the name, description, and price in one input.
You need to have it separate like that, right?
Just like Project 2. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to type out three just different pieces of information like that in one box. It would be confusing to the user as well if you told them to type out their name, address, and or like a product and for Amazon on one line.
Could you go back to the code right quick? I just want to make sure. Scroll up a little bit. Toward the top. Yeah, I was just trying to follow the the handle new product change. I get that. I guess it's just an event change. Name match. Okay.
So the name, when we do that, the name here has to match what we have there. If we want to use this function, this trick here, you have to put name, just like Project 2. You got to make the name match the object like that. Remember when we had to, if the name didn't match, it wouldn't update
Yeah, it wouldn't
or
update.
create. Same thing, same sort of situation. So you can use this in most of your forums as long as the name matches up and you're updating. Like this one, we have that new product, so you got to make sure you are updating new product. But
yeah, so you don't have it to where it actually updates it yet. You have to put that inside the new function, right?
I don't have it where it actually updates the what?
When you click create new product, it doesn't yet create a new product. You have to finish the on add new item to functionally do that. Right now, it's just a console.
Yeah, it's just a console log. Once we actually need to get this new product up to here, this product list.
All the way up there.
Yep.
Which I guess would be a push command, right?
Yes. That's the easiest way to do it. If we take a look at the, that function again, I'm going to go through this real quick. We'll see there's some fancy new syntax. We need to make a copy of the state value we are updating instead of updating the state itself. You see a great new JavaScript feature known as the spread operator. The 3 dots tells JavaScript to make a copy of this new product object. The copy will have all the previous info contained, and we can just edit this object without updating the state directly. We'll use our event info to change it, like the particular name, right? And then we'll use set state to store it back into the state. Our product form component will now successfully create a product object for us. The big question is now we have, how do we get this object into the list on the homepage state? Couldn't I just pass in the product list as a prop and then push it to my new view, right? So you can't, because remember before it's read only. Props are read only. So this would be a simple, very simple approach, but remember props are read only. This means we won't have the ability to change props once they're passed down. Another problem is that we want to change the actual product list of the homepage component, not a copy inside of our current. This change needs to be able to trickle down to all the other components that deal with the product itself. So if we need to change the product list on the homepage component itself, then the update function will also have to live on the homepage. Fortunately, we can pass down a function to our child component as a prop. So let's create a function to pass down to our admin view, right? So we're basically going to have a function that allows us to put a new product into it. We're making a copy of the state and we're pushing that into that list, that product list. So we're doing a copy, we're doing a push, and we're updating. And we're going to do that in our homepage component. So we need to add functionality here that our children can call on to update the parent, to tell the parent to do something. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to do a whole state copy just for consistency's sake. So I'm going to say const new state equals ... this state. And what I want to do, I want to make a function that receives a new product, because we're going to have to pass something in. And we are going to need to take this state and add that new product to the product list. How are we going to do that? New product is an object that needs to be inside a product list in this new state. What do you think we're right here?
New state dot new product.
New product. What are we trying to do right now with the state and homepage?
Like it's a copy of that. Oh.
The function name kind of tells it as well, what we're trying to do.
And we want to add a new product to the state.
Mm-hmm.
The state is an object, right?
Yes.
It's
like this right here. Well, we're not going to set the state till we make our modifications first.
Right.
So do we do product list, dot product list?
Product list. Okay. What would we do with that? What do we want to do with that?
Push in the new product?
Yep. We want to push in the new one. After we've done that, we will have our new item in here, and then we can use set state now. We can say this dot set state and put in new state.
Okay, so we created a new copy of the state,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to push in the new product
Mhm.
to that copy
Mm-hmm.
and then update it.
Yep.
And then you want to call the function and put the new product inside the argument. So you need to
Yep.
prop that down
Yep.
back to there.
We need to pass this down to our children so they can call onto this if they want to. So we now need to pass this down to admin view.
Yeah. So admin view, admin product list equals this dot. Is that it?
And if we want to shorten this, we can as well. If we want to make it like add product, we can do that. Right? It just has to match.
Then, yeah, we would have to be consistent in the admin view.
Yep.
Okay.
I like to copy and paste and paste and paste. Like I don't risk writing stuff out like this at all.
Question: Why didn't you write this dot state dot add new product to product?
So this is state.
Oh, okay.
These
okay,
are
okay.
just methods in the class. So yeah, that's just state's just data.
Oh, okay, I see. And in product list, we had to do that because that came from the state.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
wasn't a separate function. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's that data we're just passing on. And this one is just a function. And again, because we use an arrow function, it's bind it to homepage. Even though we're going to call in another class, is bind it to this homepage. So that's why I said just stick with the arrow functions, save yourself some pain. So now we're in the admin view, right? What are we going to do with it here? Right now we have a function called this dot props dot product list,
Put it
right?
in product form.
Yep, we gotta pass it the product form because it's useless to us here, right?
That's the same name, right? Admin product dot list equals this dot.
So what is that gonna be equal to?
This dot add new product list. We just passing it right through.
Well, so it's not gonna be this dot that because there's nothing in this class. There's nothing in this class for that. The only place it's at is in our props.
Oh, this dot props dot admin. Okay.
Yep, we actually have to pass the prop down as a prop to the form. Now, inside of here, we should have access to that.
In product form.
Yep. And we can do this dot props dot add product list. We can put in, what are we going to put in here inside of those parentheses?
New product.
How are we going to get that in there? What are we going to type?
This dot new product. No.
This dot. Yeah.
What, Ronald?
This that new that long we just did. Is it new product?
Nope.
This dot state, right?
Yeah, this dot state. Because it's in state, it's right here. We've been modifying this the entire time. The new product in state. So it's this dot state dot new product. That's how we get the new product out. This dot state. That's what we've been modifying down here. This object. And we just can pass, because new product matches all of our existing products, just like a schema in a database, we could just pop it in and it should work perfectly fine.
It's already auto updated.
Mm-hmm. It's already auto updated. We don't need to mess with anything.
Brandon, can you go to the code
Hold on for 1 second.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. So that has worked for us. You saw we pushed that in. I'm going to do it a couple times here. When we push that in, I'm holding enter. It's pushing that into the array. So what were you wanting to look at, Ronald, there? What part?
When you first put the add new product to product list, you did that in the admin view.
Homepage. So we did a homepage where the data was.
Right.
We copy the state. We made a function that allows us to pass new product into it and push it into this product list.
Because if you move your mouse, the new state dot product. I'm reading line 24. The new state dot product list, and the push the new product. So you're pushing a new product every time one appears through the product list.
So this is a function that we're creating that allows someone, they can call it, you can put a new product in it, and it will push it into the state, set state with it. So we copy the state, we modify it, and then we set state to it. So this function by itself does, like, it can add a new product in if called. No one's calling it yet. It's not called on this page, but it's functionality that we're creating.
And the new state is this product.
The new state is a copy of the current state.
Oh, okay.
Or the dot. So the dot is a spread operator. It lets us copy object and use that. So we don't want to modify what we currently have. We want to make a copy, modify that,
By
and then
adding
set state.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
And then, so this function by itself, we don't want to use it here. We want to use it all the way down in the product form. So we have to pass it down to admin view, and in admin view, we have to pass it down to product form, and then product form can use it.
That's why you put admin view on.
So this is where we pass it to admin view as a prop. And this is where we then pass it down again. We said this dot props because that's what it turns. It's really hard to kind of.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the wheels turning.
Okay.
All right.
So Brandon, in product form, when you added it to the function on add new item, saying this property add new product. What is that line saying on 29?
It's saying use the function that was passed to me called add new product form and pass this into it. This form says, I have no idea what that function is. I have no idea what it does. I'm just going to pass data into it. That's it. Like this form has no idea what that function is. It's just, we're just calling it. You as the coder, you know what it does, but this form has no idea about it. You're just calling a function and you're passing data into it.
And it's passing in the new product from the state. Okay.
Yep, from up here.
Okay.
Many times too, after people will do this, they will actually do this dot set state, and they will clear out new product. Like, so they'll make new product equal this again. Right. So they'll do that so it clears the form out after they create a new item, right? One of the really common things people do as well is they'll make a variable called initial state. And they'll put all of this in there. They'll do that so that if they ever need to return back the default, they can just do that. They make a copy of it when they start out their app. They'll say, this is ... initial state. And like in this form, they will do that. They will do this dot set state ... initial state. I'm going to undo this. I just wanted you guys to know this is how some people manage their component. So if they ever need to return back to default or reset their stuff, they can do it, right? So I can do power drill, best power drill, $200. And when I create it, well, did I actually update that? Maybe I didn't. Yeah, maybe I didn't. Oh, I know what I think I know what I'm doing wrong there. it's something with depth with objects. Sorry, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it this way here. But I'll show you guys how to do that later on, but it's a way for you to clear it out without having to do each item one by one. Because otherwise, this can get kind of annoying. But let me put this back the way it was. I want to confuse you guys too much. Let's delete product form. Cool. Tool 1. So we're at 11:40 right now. Let's go ahead and take a break, 10 minutes, come back at 11:50 and get back to this. After when we come back, we're going to look at this form a little bit more, but we're going to start looking at our normal view for products that we'll have. That's not the admin view.
Lunch not at 12?
I'm sorry?
Lunch not at 12 or no?
12:30?
12:30. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll come back. It's just gonna be quick. We'll spend a little bit of time on that. And we'll look through this some more. We'll actually we'll try to go through and do the cart as well. And look at how we create that. So also, I'm sorry, so today as well, I want you guys, when you go off to lunch, and before we go off to lunch, probably give you guys a little bit of time because it is Wednesday. You guys do have outcomes. So I think this week you guys do have homework due for that. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time before you go off to lunch too, so you can work on that if you're got. I know it's pretty rough week for you guys. A lot of stuff being thrown at you, so it's probably the last thing on your mind is taking care of that stuff right now. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll hop into a break and we'll come back into this and keep it moving. So I see you guys
Real
back
quick,
here. 10.
What was the homework for outcomes again?
Resume.
Due today?
Yeah. Crept up, didn't it?
Okay.
Hurting.
Brandon, could I get a breakout room real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Mike, don't make it as bad as it is. Just I mean, look, just put something down, bro. I mean, we all right. Cause it's gonna get done at lunch. It's gonna get finished at lunch. So don't worry about it.
I'll just put it in by the end of the day.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Mike.